So database, how to access, how to create database, how to create table in database, how to access the data. That's how you're going to learn. But in terms of Python, how to do all those things, integrating with Python language. So before getting started, in case if you're new to database, let me explain the basic terminologies. What is data? Data can be anything like anything digital. You can say that as data. It can be a table with rows and column. That is the traditional data that you can say. Or image is also a data, right? With values, pixel values. Image is also a data. If you um, look deeper into that, it is pixel with some with some pixel values, color values, right? Image is a data, sound is a data, right? Anything that you can convert into digital form can be data. So in database management, you're going to handle all different kind of data. Okay. So, but additional aspect is it is going to be database management. When we speak in that aspect, it is going to be a table format with rows and columns. Okay, that is what we are going to deal with. What is database? Collection of such data is called database. Okay, collection of such data that is putting together in a particular format is called database. In a database, there may be collection of different data, different tables. Okay, that the table can be connected to each other. So with database, you're going to access those tables and get what you need. Okay, this collection of these data is called database, and database management system is a method of creating such data or updating the data in database or storing or retrieving. So retrieval is the main aspect. That's why we are creating and storing, right? We want to save it because we want to retrieve the information whenever it's needed, or we want to from the data, we want to retrieve some useful information. Okay, so that is called database management. So note down all these terms. What is data, what is database, and what is database management. Okay, so next we are going to see some more terminologies. Database system. What is database system? The data along with the database management system is called database system together. Okay, so database management system, DBMS can be controlled with many different languages like Oracle, SQL, different kind of languages or that different kind of tools are there to build database management system. But together the data along with the database management is called database system. So next we're going to speak about query language. What is query language? The language, a communication language that is established between the user and the data. Okay, the language which is helpful to communicate with the database is called query language. It's a specialized programming language, not a general purpose, but a specialized for communication with the database, specifically designed for creating database, creating table, searching in the database, retrieving the information. So the language which is written for all these purposes is called query language. So there are different types of query languages out there, which very popular is SQL and then Oracle. Okay, these two are very popular, but different other languages are there nowadays. Okay, but these two are popular. You are going to learn SQL. And then database applications. What is database application? A software that helps us to interact with the database system. So for the database experts, they can directly connect it. But for the end user, they don't need to be the programming expert to connect with the database, right? There should be some interface to make it easier, right? So that interface that is called database applications. Okay, so what are the different kind of opportunities or roles are there in real world? If you learn database, what are the different fields in reality? What are the different areas that the database experts will work? main three areas are database administrator, designer, and programmer. So the administrator, they are responsible to secure access. They will work in the perspective of security and for enforcing the procedures for because when we speak about database, it's all about right now, it is a big data world, right? So the security, data security is the important aspect. Who can access the data and to what level they can access the data. So enforcing these things are the responsibility for database administrator. Okay, providing the authorization, that can be one role. And the another one is database designer. So these people, they are responsible for building the database, determining the format of each data, how it should be structured, how it should be stored, and how it should be connected with each other, storage and the response time, and the all those governance, the middle level governance on the data, okay, will be taken care by these people, database designers. Okay, so the next team is called database programmer. So what they are responsible for creating the application, that is the interface, right? We were speaking about the database application in the previous slide. So they are responsible to create a software or application that can combine the query language, which is designed by database designer, combining that query language with the general purpose programming language like Python, right? So these people are responsible for creating an application to connect the query language like SQL to the general purpose programming language like Python. So they are called database programmer. And the final one is called database user. These people are end user who is consuming the data in the database. Okay, who is consuming the data, that is the end user who is accessing the data through that interface, are called database user. So except the database user concept, when you learn the database concept, you will be working on, you will maybe partly working on, fully working on, it depends on whatever your project you're going to work on. But database administrator, designer, programmer, these are the different aspect of the roles that is part of database management system. Okay, next, data models. Okay, it's a really so there is a separate course. Okay, for database we are just covering. We're just dealing with the tip of the iceberg, just few things application wise we are going to deal. But if you look at the data models, there are different kind of data models used to represent the structure of the data. I'm not going to go deeper into that, but just be familiar with different models like hierarchical model, entity relationship model, entity attribute value model, object relational model, star schema. There are different types of models are there in database management system. You might have learned in that course, but what we are going to deal is the relational model. Okay. So to work with the general purpose programming language, the relational model is, it is easy to start with the relational model. Okay, this is what we are going to focus in this module, relational model. What is relational model? Okay, so relational model is nothing but the data is going to be saved in table format as rows and column. That is going to be the structure. That is simple, right? Relational data model is nothing but the data is saved in table format as rows and columns. So manipulation, what are the data manipulation language that we are going to do to work on this relational model? SQL for creating, retrieving, and modifying the data. And the other component of this model is data integrity. Okay, data integrity, that is in real world, when you create the data, the administrator and the designer, they have to look on the business rule of a particular company, and they have to develop their data, that is the data structure should integrate with the integrity of the company, the rules, business rules. So that data structure should be able to integrate the business rule of the company. So the relational model is one of the data integrity is one of the components of the relational data model. So this relational data model was introduced by E.F. Codd around 1970. Okay, this is pretty popular and widely used model. How we are going to say what are the terms that you should be familiar to work on the relational model. As I told you, we are going to deal with the table format with rows and columns. So the row and column is going to be the basic element for the relational model. So it has table, row, and column. All of them are going to be the basic elements. Each column, also known in database, it is also known as field, okay, that has restriction in terms of type of data being stored. For example, if you take the product ID column in this example, all those product ID columns should be of same data type, right? It cannot be one number and one string. That is not allowed. All of the rows in that particular column should be of same data type. That goes with all other columns. So in relational data model, all columns should be of same data type. If you take the product name should be of string type. And the price should be in dollar. That means in terms of numerical data type. Okay. So the row, the number of records, like a different kind of field. Okay, there should not be any repetition. We will look at the rules later on. But row is also known as record. Column is also known as field. You might have learned relational algebra. I'm not sure it's with the requirement, but if you have learned the relational algebra, the relational model is built on the top of relational algebra. Okay, so we are going to ask, query is the thing, a question. We are going to connect with this data through querying to retrieve an information. Okay, so let's look at the basic terms and the rule. First of all, rule. So to be in a database relational model, to work with the relational model, what are the rules that we have to follow? The rules are, first, the table should have unique name. Each table should have a unique name because we are going to connect with the tables through its name. And then every attribute value, that is each cell value, should be atomic. That means it should be of unique value. You should not have the space, or it should not have a composite of value. It should be unique value. And every row must be unique. You cannot have two rows. You cannot have two strat. That can be, see, you can see the product ID and category ID is one for many rows, but it is not like the other column values are different. So that should not be any repetition of rows. If you take this 8, 2, Hofner, icon, and 49.9, that should be a unique row. That may be the repetition of column values, few column values. But if all column values are same for two rows, that is not allowed. There should not be any repetition in terms of rows. At least one column value should be different. So that's what they meant it to be unique. And the column table must have unique name. That makes sense, right? If you create a table, if you have two product ID, then that doesn't make sense, right? So the column names and the category, everything should be unique in terms of column. And also the row should be unique. Row value should be unique. The order of the column and the order of the row should be irrelevant. Whether you keep the product ID as the first column or the last column, it should not be the matter. The order of the column should not be the matter, and the order of rows should not be the matter. Okay, so it should be irrelevant of the order of rows and columns. So these are the rules that you have to keep it in your mind when you work on relational database model. Okay, that is about the relational database model rules. Now let's look at the special purpose programming language. That is the language that we are going to use to speak to the database. So as I told you, we are going to learn SQL. SQL is a special programming language, special purpose programming language, specifically designed to communicate with the database. So it can be integrated with general purpose programming languages like C++, Java, C Sharp, Python. Of course, at the end of the day, it should be connected to the a general purpose programming language to bring it to the application. Okay, but in its level, the second layer. So first layer is the database, and the second layer is going to be the special purpose programming language, and the third layer is going to be the application that connects that special purpose programming language to the general purpose programming languages. Okay, so like you might have learned a lot of special purpose programming languages, like HTML is a special purpose programming language only designed for web application, CSS also for web application, JavaScript for client server scripting. So these are special purpose programming language. JavaScript can be special and general purpose both. Okay. Okay, so know the difference between general purpose and special purpose. General purpose are like C++, Java, Python. These are the general purpose programming languages. We can do any kind of different set of tasks. And special purpose are specifically designed for a particular aspect like web design, a natural language or database management. Okay, so specifically designed for a particular aspect is called special purpose programming language. Okay, so let's see a little bit about SQL, how the term comes. SQL, Structured Query Language. That's how the name came. Structured Query Language, which allows the retrieval of the data, create the data, manipulate the data, and retrieve the data, okay, from the relational database model. It's called SQL, developed in 1990s. Specifically, it is a data manipulation language. Manipulation in the sense creating, updating, retrieving, and updating. Updating is the main concept, and talks to the server that we know. Okay, standardized by ASCII. Other SQL, other structured query, other languages, or like Oracle, Sybase, Microsoft SQL Server, Access. These are other, but popular one is SQL and Oracle. Why it is popular? Because it is fast, powerful, open access, scalable, portable. Okay. Some languages are not free, not open source, but SQL, what are the languages are open source and free? They will grow, it will grow. Okay, it will adapt to the new thing and will grow, like Python, SQL. These are all open source, free languages. So that will adapt with the changes quickly. Okay. Next, SQL query. What is query? Query is nothing but a dialogue. You can take it as a dialogue. Using the SQL language, you're going to create a dialogue, which is called query, that will speak to the database server. Database, that is the table. Okay. Particularly, we are going to query, that is through that queries, through that dialogue, we are going to connect to the table and access the table and add values, change values, retrieve values, all those things we are going to do through these queries. Okay, called query commands. Or it's called statement, SQL statement. Okay, there are different types of varieties of ways that you can access SQL, but for this class, we are going to use SQLite. SQLite. So that's why I asked you to download this SQLite. Okay, from this browser, you have to download SQLite because we are going to access SQL through this SQLite. So please download this. So SQLite is based on C library. It is like it provides a lightweight. SQLite is compared with the term itself. You can see it is light because it is lightweight disk-based database. That means sometimes some databases that will take quite amount of space, but SQLite is very lightweight database that can be integrated with mobile. Mostly for mobile application, they'll use SQLite because it doesn't take much space. Okay, for online, a real world mobile applications which has to run in mobile, For that purposes, SQLite is very useful because it is a lightweight database that can work with the mobile. Internal data storage doesn't take much space. So it can be in internal data storage. It can work in mobile space. Okay. And very lightweight. It doesn't need much dependency in terms of processing as well. So you have to import SQLite to get started with the lab. So okay. So we're going to do the integration, the SQLite querying through SQLite. To import SQLite, since we're going to do it in Jupyter Notebook, we're going to use the package. Okay, we have to import the package SQLite with the package name is SQLite3. So use import SQLite3 to import the SQLite to your code. And then to connect with the database in SQLite, it is different. You can simply say SQLite3, that object. Once you import, you will have this object. And then object is SQLite3 dot method. The SQLite3 has a method called connect. So you when you pass a parameter, the database name as a parameter to this connect method, it will automatically create the database. That is how you will run it in SQLite. But in a normal way, in a regular database, without integrating it to Python, if you need to create a database, this is the code. Create database and the database name. Okay, it's the raw SQL coding. So whenever you see uppercase in this slide, in the syntax, that means it is the keyword. You know what is keyword, right? No, you cannot use it for particular any other purpose. It has a particular meaning. So that it is not it's just a thumb rule. Still, if you use lowercase, still the database will understand that. But it is for your readability. It's kind of a thumb rule. Okay. Specify the keywords in uppercase. Create means creating. Literally, it's English. It's literal English, easy language. Database means it will create the database and you have to give the database name. So the identifiers and all the names, table name, row name, all those things, you can just give it in lowercase. The identifier can be in lowercase. The keyword should be in uppercase. That's the thumb rule that we are going to follow. Okay. To delete the database, the syntax is drop database name. You can give a try, but we are just going to get started with creating database and table. Okay. In case if you want to change the name, you want to delete the database, then you can say drop is the keyword, database is the keyword, and you can give which database that you want to delete. Then you have to give the database. A database can have multiple tables. So when you delete the database, you should be careful because it will just delete all the tables which is inside that. So before you give drop database name, be careful because it will just delete all the tables that you have created. Okay. So that is about dropping database. Okay. So in SQLite, how are we going to do? We are going to import SQLite with this keyword. And then object we are creating. SQLite is the object, dot operator, connect is the method, and you're going to give the database name, this .db. Okay, you have to specify .db MIME extension. Okay, so this will simply create. So we are not using that create database name here because we are doing it with Python. Okay, with SQLite. So this command will create and connect to the database. And then normally for creating table is pretty different in a raw SQL, but when you do it with the SQLite Python, then here in Jupyter Notebook, particularly to do it in Jupyter Notebook, you have to do this extra coding. Connecting the database to cursor object. In order to execute it in Jupyter Notebook, we are going to connect it with the cursor object. How? This DB has the all access to this connect method now. You got it, right? Because what is this DB? DB is the object. Now, this DB object has lot of methods, which is part of SQLite, which is part of connect. There is a method called cursor. So you are connecting this cursor method and creating an object here. Now, this object is the one, what you're going to use. C, okay, is what you're going to use for all commands execution. Okay, maybe we can get started with this. Okay, so you can input SQLite 3. And connect to the database. Import SQLite 3. Since you have already installed SQLite DB without any error, you should get it. And then next, we are creating another object to work with, to create the database. To connect this SQLite to the database that we are going to work on, you have to use this SQLite object dot, and look at that. What are the methods that we have? So what are the methods that it offers? You can see lot of methods are there that comes with this. What method that we are going to select is connect. SQLite dot connect is the method that we are going to use. And here you have to give the database name. Student underscore database is the database name, and you have to use DB for this. Okay, now we have created the database. The database name is student underscore database. And next thing, we are going to create that cursor object. Why? Because we need to integrate it with the Jupyter notebook. Okay. So we are not going to use the app, end user app. We are going to use this Jupyter notebook to work with this. So DB is the object that we have created. DB dot use tab and see what are the possible method that it is integrated. What are the things it can? You can just look at the methods that comes with this. What method that we are going to use here? A cursor method. Okay, just click cursor, and then it doesn't need any parameter. Just run it. So then already we have discussed about these things. So what are the commands that we are going to use? Create for creating table. The command create will help you to create the table. Alter to modify the database. Drop to already you know the drop. Even to delete the table, you will use the same drop command. Drop is the command that will help you to delete both database and table. Okay, and these are commands that actually we are going to work. Creating table, inserting values, updating values, deleting values, and then retrieving values. To create table, you will use create command. To delete values, you will use drop command. To insert value, you will use insert into command. To update value, you will use update command. Delete means drop. And then to retrieve value, you will use select command. Okay, don't worry, we are going to do everything in practical. Just you're getting introduced to what are we going to do in this lab. Okay. Before knowing this, to create a table, you should be familiar with the data type that you're going to work in this table, right? Does make sense, right? It makes sense, right? What kind of data you're going to add in the table, that you have to be very specific, because they have mentioned that it should be unique and it should be same. If you create particular data type in a particular column, all the rows in that column should be of same data type. So first you have to finalize what kind of data that you are going to create, what kind of data values that you're going to add in that table. Okay, what are the different types of data types are there? Okay, so and what is the equivalent value in general purpose language? Okay, so if you say you know Python language, so maybe I will connect it with the Python. In Python, if you say none, in SQLite you have to say null. In Python, if you say int, In SQL, you have to say integer. That it is in uppercase because it's not a rule, but all the built-in commands and keywords. This is a keyword, right? So it should be in uppercase. All the keywords should be in uppercase. And then float. If it is float in Python, then in SQL, you have to say real. If it is str in Python, you have to say text in SQL, not a string. You have to use text. If you know database, then all these things might make sense to you. Should be already familiar with that. But if it is new to you, note it down. If it is byte in Python, we didn't work with byte and all so far. But if it is byte in Python, you have to use the term blob, binary object. Okay, blob. You don't need a separate data type in Python to deal with the date. Do we need? Did we? No, we just used integer to deal with the date, right? But in a database, in SQL, there is a need for a separate data type for handling date and time. Do you agree? Yeah, because database is all about, in real world database, all about accessing values, and that is mostly based on the date. Okay, retrieval based on the date. So if there is a separate data type to handle the date and time, that will be convenient. So in database, there is a separate data type to handle date and time. So date and time, date, year. What do you see in the left hand? The column date, year, date, time, timestamp. Timestamp means like it's a kind of all languages have a way of keeping like keeping track of timeline with the timestamp that started from 1970. Okay, so that is a different kind of concept to know the current time in computer language. Okay, so that is called timestamp. To use that, timestamp is the keyword that we have to use. So these are the different data types. Okay, so as I told you, the fundamental operation that you are going to learn in this module is you're going to learn creating database, creating table, inserting value into the table, and then updating the value, deleting the value, and selecting through querying, retrieving the value through the select command. That's what you're going to do. So before creating the table, you have to be very particular about what you're going to do. So before creating the table, you should know what kind of data type you are going to use in the table. What is going to be the column name and what rows can be null, whether the column name should be null or can be null or cannot be null. If it is the primary key, okay, if you know database, you know what is primary key. Or else I will just explain it in shallow level. Primary key is the thing that will help you with the retrieving a particular row. For example, student ID is unique for a particular row. Agree? No student can have the same student ID or your SSN number. It can be unique. No two person can have the same SSN. So these are called primary key. So when we do the data retrieval, we will use this primary key for the retrieval. Okay. So if a particular column is for having a primary key, then we should not let it to be null because we cannot retrieve the data without that particular value. So it cannot be null. So you have to decide which column can value, which column cannot have null value, what kind of data type that we are going to save, and what values can be unique, a candidate key, okay, unique but for that particular row or unique for a particular column, that we have to decide. Primary key and foreign key. Foreign key is kind of key that is connected to the primary key. For example, student number can be the primary key, student ID can be the primary key, and the name can be the foreign key, which is connected. A foreign key is a key that one table to another table. Okay, so that is called foreign key. What can be the foreign key? All those things you have to think about. Have a conceptual understanding of all these things before you start creating the table. Does it make sense? Right? You have to have a plan on what you're going to work on. So you have to think about all these things and have a conceptual understanding before you start working on creating a table. And then identifying the constraints. We already discussed about that, right? A business rule, a particular organization you're working on, they may have some certain business rule. How to integrate that business rule to this database? Okay, so that you may think of. This is kind of little bit advanced concept. We are not going to do it. Okay, but in real world scenario, you will be integrating the constraints, domain specific constraints, business rule related constraints. All those things will be integrated. We are not going to do it in this module, but you're just going to learn how to create, how to update, how to select all those things. Okay. Now let's start with creating a table. Okay, this is the syntax. Create is the keyword. Okay, that's why it is an uppercase. Table is the keyword and table name you're going to give. And then here inside the curly brace, you have to give all the column values with a column name and data type. For example, in the first exercise that we are going to create student database, right? We are going to create a table called student. Okay, so the table is going to be a student. So what is the code command for that? Create table. The table name is student, and then you have to give the column name with the data type. Name is going to be the first column. Means what can be the data type for the name? We already seen if it is a string, we have to say text. And then email. Email is the column name. Means we have already seen string means text. And ID is int. That means in SQL we have to say integer. And also we have to specify whether it can be primary, whether it should be null or not. So this ID is our primary key. So there you have to mention it is an integer. ID is an integer data type. It should not be null. To say should not be null, you have to say it not null. And then it is primary key. To say it is primary key, you can simply say primary key. And then you can also give the other restrictions or the other features, affiliation to that, like all this column, a row. Whenever you add a new row, the student ID can be incremented automatically. Whenever if you have 4 rows, if you're adding another student, it can be automatically updated as 5. The student ID can be updated as 5. Does it make sense? Right? So you can specify that auto increment and unique. Unique means no 2 rows should not have same ID. Okay, unique. So we are just giving all those restrictions inside the create table command itself. Okay, so this is the syntax, and using the syntax, we are going to create table now. And let's see the drop table command as well. In case if you have created a wrong table and you want to delete it, then you can simply use the drop table and table name command. It will just delete the table. Then you have to recreate it again. Okay, just be careful with using drop database command because it will delete all the table name. If you didn't intend to, then it will just delete everything. Okay, so drop table also, it will just delete drop, delete all the table. Not all the table, a particular table. Okay, let's get into the coding part. We have already have all the base ready to create a table in the database. Now we are going to create a table using that command, which I have explained in that slide. Okay, get ready for creating a table. This is little bit different from the normal SQL because we are integrating it with Python in Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so I already told you we are going to use the C as an object to do everything, right? So use C dot, see what are the methods are there. That comes with a set of methods. What method that we are going to use here is execute. Click execute method. So this execute method will integrate your special purpose query language to general purpose programming language. That means this execute query integrates your SQL to Python. It's a very important query, okay? It integrates your SQL to Python. Okay, inside this, you are going to create, give this code. Create. So this is going to be little bit long coding, right? What are we going to do here is this one. We are going to create table. For that, you have to, this is the code. In the slide, I have given you the code. This is the code that we are going to create. We are going to create table with all this information. So you may need to do it with multiple lines. To do it with multiple lines, it should be taken as one single line. How can you do that? 3 slashes. Just use 3 slashes instead of quotation, single quotation or double quotation, use 3 quotations. That will take it in the as a single line. Even if you have it in multiple line, that will be taken as a single line. Are you familiar? Yeah. So let's do it. Create is the keyword. Table is the keyword. So both are in uppercase. Table name is in lowercase because it is a table name. And then here we are going to give everything as I have explained already. The columns that we are going to create, okay? Column, name. How many columns we are going to have? We are going to have 3 columns. Name, email, and ID. So we have to give 3 columns. Name, inside the quotation you have to give name because it is a string, right? And the data type is text. It's a keyword, so you can use uppercase. And the second column is going to be the email. It's a email. If you want it to be the name to be in uppercase, then you can do that as well. Okay, it's up to you. Okay, and also this is text, a data type. And then we are going to deal with the third column, which is going to have a lot of things. The third column is ID. And that is going to be integer, not null. Not null. And what are the other things? You have to mention it is primary key, auto increment, and unique. Okay, not null we have specified. Then you have to also specify primary key and auto increment unique. So remember, you don't need to give any comma inside that. You can just give it with space. Okay, so the parenthesis will close here and make sure each name is inside the string. And even if you don't give the keywords in uppercase, it will not alert you because it is not an error. It is just a thumb rule that we are following. Okay. If you don't have any typo error, if you don't have any syntax error, you will see this command. You will see this command, SQLite cursor command. If you see this, then it means that you successfully integrate your SQL query with your Python and it got executed successfully. Okay, so this is how now you have created a database with this command and you have created a table with this command. And now we are going to add values. Okay, how to add values? For that, we are going to use insert into command. Okay, insert into is the command and the into where a table. Okay, so insert into student table and then give name, email, ID. However you have given in that same format you have to give. And then values is the keyword. And then inside the parenthesis, you have to give the values in the same order, name, email, and ID. You can just take the values from the Word, whatever, the file that I have given. You can just use that to create. But to do the execute thing in Jupyter Notebook, it can execute one query at a time. Okay, instead of doing multiple, I want to do all, I'm going to have around 6 rows in this table. Okay, I'm going to create a table like this. Okay. So I'm going to have 6 rows in this table, but I want to execute every command all at once. So with C execute, you can just execute one command. To execute multiple commands all together, then you have to use, look at that. Do you see execute script? Yeah, you have to use that method to execute multiple commands all at once. Okay, so here also, since we are going to have multiple lines and we are going to execute multiple lines all together, use that triple quotation. Okay, now we are going to use that insert into command. Insert into, what is the table name without any error, without any typo error or case, because it is case sensitive. Whatever table you have given, the name, you have to use the same. If you use uppercase student, it should be uppercase student. I just use the lowercase student. Just give the student name and also the name and mail. Okay, so name, email. I just use the uppercase for each letter. So I'm just using the same thing. But whatever you have given, just give those values. And then value is the keyword. Values is the keyword. That's why it is an uppercase here. And then you have to give all the values. Okay, so first name, student name is going to be John. The email address is going to be John. Since it is text, you have to give it inside the quotation. gsu.edu. I'm just giving some random email addresses. And the auto, even though we have given auto increment, I'm just giving the student ID here. Okay, next I'm going to copy this and paste it 6 times. So add 6 values, 4, 5, 6. And now I'm going to just change the values here, the name and email. I'm just going to change those values. Okay. Next student name is going to be Colleen and CVL edu and the ID is true. And the third name is going to be Ted and then ID is ted.gsu.edu and the ID is 3. And the fourth student name, I gave it like Sally. And the name, you can just use any name. But the thing is like when we do the query, if you use the same name, it will be easy for you to check it. And the fourth name, again Ted. But ID is 5. Okay. And the fifth name, Kristen. And then ID is K. Yeah. And ID is 6. So when you run it, if you see this command, then you have successfully inserted all the values into the table. I purposely added this TED with this because I want to teach you how to do the deleting option. Okay, so we are going to delete it because there is a repetition in name and email ID. So we are going to do deleting. Okay, so to delete a particular row, to delete a database, it is drop command. To delete a table, it is drop. But to delete a row, you have to use delete. Okay, delete is the command that you have to use. Okay, let's execute it. C dot tab and use this execute comma. This is single command. So we can use execute comma and you can use single quotation because it is single query. And delete is the keyword to delete a particular row. Okay. And then where we are deleting, for that we have to use from is the keyword. So in uppercase. And student table. So just give the student table name without any error. And then where is the keyword? that will help you to filter which row, okay, in which row you're going to delete. Where is the keyword, a command to pick a particular row. How you are going to pick? We can pick it either with the name or we can pick with the email ID or ID. Okay. So here we are going to use the email ID. So just say email, whatever name you have given, you have to use the same. 10 RGSU dot edu. gsu.edu. That is the command that we are going to delete. Email. Okay, that we need one more command. So maybe I will use this uppercase instead of single quotation. I'll use double quotation because one quotation for the email and one quotation for um, the command. Okay, so so that will delete a particular row. Now we have to see how it looks, right? How it looks. We didn't see the table. Look at the table. We have to look at the table, right? So what is the command to look at the table, to retrieve the table? You have to use the command called select. Select is the command that will help you to look at the table, retrieve the values from the table. Select. You can just specify what particular column you want to select, or if you say asterisk, then all the columns will be selected. Okay. Shall we look at all the columns and see how it looks? Okay. So here we can simply say C dot tab execute. And what is the command? Select is the keyword, a command. And then star, that means all the columns. And from is the keyword. And where from the student table. And okay. So here we are this is the command. In terms of command, SQL select from student, that's it. But you have to integrate with the Python, right? For that, we have to integrate with the SQLite Connect or object-oriented concept. So here we have to use the tab and see a method. You will see, oh, why the tab doesn't work. Okay, fetch all. Use the command call. You might have seen the fetch all command in the C object. So that fetch all will help fetch whatever commands that you have given. You have to add that. Okay, that may be new to you. If you're already familiar with the database concept, this is kind of new. Fetch all, you have to integrate to the Python so that it will fetch. And then we want to fetch it, and we to see it in the Jupyter node itself, we have to have some placeholder, right? So we are going to create a placeholder to print and see. This is just to show it in Jupyter Notebook. Okay. This doesn't make any change in the database or table, but to see the result in the Jupyter Notebook, we have this rows placeholder, a variable. And then we are using this placeholder, a variable, to see what is there. Now you can see whatever you have added, including the delete command, it has deleted that 5 student ID with the same name. And you can see the result in the Jupyter Notebook itself. But you don't want to see it like this. You want to look at it as a table. How can we do that? Can we use the for loop and iterate through each row and display it? Easy, right? We'll do that. For is not a, yeah, it's a simple thing. Normally we'll do, right? So for row, temporary variable, use that comma as a iterating point and iterate through that and print it. Instead of printing the rows, you're just printing each values. So that will just give you the values like this. That will give you some, okay. It seems like it deleted both. Okay, that's fine. Maybe we can use the student ID to delete it, but that's fine. If this is what you have, good. Okay. So the next one, we are going to select a particular row from here. How can we do that? Particular row. Okay. So let's do this. Rows, a placeholder, C dot execute, select every column from student. Where is the keyword? Command, email, and we want to integrate cvl at su dot edu dot fetch all. Print rows. We can see the particular row that can be executed. Okay, next we are going to see how to use sorting. Like if we want to sort it by order, how can we do that? Okay. For that, we will use the command called order by. You can use the command order by with the select statement to get the result in ascending or descending order. Okay. So right now it has been added or ordered in student ID 123 that way. But if you want to order it by email, you can say order by email. If you want to do it in descending order, then you can use the command called DESC, descending. Okay, that DESC command will put it in descending order. Let's try it. Okay, let's do the order by thing. Rows C dot execute. Inside that, give select star from student order by is the keyword. I want to order it by email. So let's give the email column name. Then use fetch all. And then print the values. You can see if you want to see it in a proper order, then you have to do this. Iterate through the for loop, then you will see this. Okay, if you want to do the descending order, maybe this time let's order it by the name. Okay, maybe you can copy this command. And what we want to do? Order it by name. So just give the name column. And then after this, you have to specify whether it is descending or ascending. So to do it in descending order, you have to use the command DESC fetch all, print rows. And you can see everything will be fetched like this, right? And then if you want to do it in, want to see that as a separate list like a table, then you can specify it inside the iteration. Okay. Let's do one more thing where we're going to use update command. In update command, means to modify the values. For example, the name student name Colleen, you want to change the spelling of the name from COLEE to LI. Okay, so to modify the values inside the table, you will use update and set. These two commands you have to use to update and set, and also you have to use the var class to pick a particular row, to filter out the particular row. So let's do that. Update command. Okay, so C dot execute date student set name is going to be COLIN instead of LEEN, where email, we are going to pick it with the email address or student ID. We can do both. I'm going to do the email address where gsu.edu and then use fetch all and print the result. Oh, I have to have it in a, I have to have a folder for that. No, we cannot receive the result. To see the result, we have to have the select method, right? This command, we don't need this placeholder because we are just updating the value. Then again, separately, we have to use the command, select all command to see the update, okay? So for that, we can just again execute this select command. Maybe you can copy it from the previous command section and execute it again to see whether the update has been done. Okay. You can see the spelling has been updated from LEEN to the EN. Okay. So let's do a small review on what we have done so far. So to alter the table also, if you want to add a new column to the table, then you can use this command, alter table and the name, and then you can use the add command and add a new, maybe you can add a city. Okay. Add a city to that as a new column. And then here you are specifying the data type. Okay. So this is to add a new column or to modify the column or change the value data type. That also you can do. For that, alter table, student table name and add column, a new column with a data type. Or if you want to modify it, you can use the modify command. Modify command, you can modify the data from integer. If you want to modify it to text, you can modify it. Okay. And then to drop a particular column, then you have to again use the alter table command, drop column, and whatever the thing that you have added, you can drop it. Okay. So far, what are the commands that we have learned? Creating a table, inserting the value, deleting a particular table by using var class, and retrieving the table from select star or a particular column, that also you can do. Updating value and altering table. Altering table we'll see in detail later, but this is what we have covered in this class. So next class, we are going to see altering table and also we're going to see multiple table query. Okay.